Hello everyone. Before I begin, I want to preface this by saying that this is an ongoing research project of mine, and so while I speculate some conclusions of preliminary data collection that I have done, I have not come to any conclusions as the project has not been finished yet. And I'm inviting as much feedback as possible, as this is my first research project of this nature. Yes, okay. I am a Jewish student at the University of Denver, and after October 7th, I noticed a change in the language in which my peers used to describe their identity. Many stopped identifying as white, instead of stating that they were indigenous Middle Eastern. An email was sent to the student government signed by 26 Jewish students and alumni using the terms Jews, Israel, and Israeli government interchangeably. This group of students, along with their parents, worked to get students expelled and staff fired who spoke about Palestine. At this time, the Jewish community was also consolidating who got to be Jewish and who did not. Discussions around Jewish identity became about ethnicity rather than religion, with multiple students stating that converts could never truly be Jewish. There was also an ideological aspect to it. Parents who did not support the harassment of students were removed from the Jewish parent Facebook group, and students who did not identify with Israel were labeled as self-hating and excluded from spaces. I also noticed a change in what Jewish students were posting and sharing online, and so you can see up here a lot of what is being shared is, should we really be considering this a religion? Is this an indigenous sovereignty movement? Is being labeled white really correct for us? Things like that, instead of an emphasis on anti-Semitism happening in our midst. I believe that what we are seeing from this is a reconstruction of the American Jewish identity centered on the collective trauma of the Holocaust, the conflict in Israel, and the racial and moral politics within the United States in order to create a united national identity with its own nationalism separate from but tangential to political Zionism. The goal of my project is to answer the question, is this happening, and if so, why? I wanted to ground this project in Hannah Arendt's theory of isolation and nationalism and Benedict Anderson's understanding of imagined communities. The American Jewish community is one which has struggled to find the balance of being American while maintaining their cultural religious identity, something with which all non-Anglo Protestants have struggled to do in the United States. Knowing this, I wanted to look at how this isolation feeds into the narratives which Jewish students resonate with. Peter J. Rabinowitz states that narrative serves the purpose of informing others how to perceive our community. It also reinforces how the community feels it should view itself. This is why I'm looking at social media through the lens of not only mass media dependency theory, but also with the understanding of how the algorithm works. This theory states that the more unstable a society is, the more its citizens rely on the media for information. This is how media has been used to manufacture consent for a number of actions taken by representative governments historically, and I think social media is used as a tool for the creation of this national Jewish identity through this same manufacturing. To test my theory, I decided to do surveys and interviews to gain insight into how Jewish students at the University of Denver are defining their Judaism and Jewishness, what their perception of Israel is, and its relationship to their identity, and whether they feel they belong to the Jewish community while factoring in social media. So for the most part, respondents stated that they were white, with one student stating that racially they were Jewish, and one interviewee specifying that he was white passing, but not a WASP, and therefore not white. Almost all of those who responded to questions about Israel stated that it was talked about positively as a homeland. However, only 9 people stated that they would move there. Most who did stated that it would be in case another Holocaust happened. Those who said that they would not move to Israel had a variety of reasons, such as it's dangerous, they're not religious enough, they do not agree with the government, America was their true home, and one student said that they did not wish to live in a desert or serve in the IDF. The majority of respondents named the Holocaust as an important piece of their identity, with October 7th coming in second for most mentions. Only 13 students replied that their identity had changed after October 7th, and controlling for political alignment, all right-leaning respondents stated that they felt safe in the Jewish community because everyone agreed with their views. The majority of left-leaning respondents stated that they felt safe if they surrounded themselves with community members who supported them, and those who did not feel safe cited disagreements over political views, anti-LGBTQ sentiment, and one respondent cited racism. For those who answered the social media piece, Jewish on Campus, Hey Alma, and Jewish Voice for Peace were the most followed accounts. However, based on reposts and mutual followers lists, the top accounts that students actually followed were Stand With Us, Jewish on Campus, Jewish Voice for Peace, the IDF, Hey Alma, and Jew Belong. From this, as well as those who chose to respond to this question, I believe that these accounts are followed because it is how students want to stay informed, and they reflect students' experiences as Jews. They are afraid, and these accounts for the most part tell them that yes, they should be afraid, but also that they have the power to do something about it. So here is a post from Stand With Us. It is a nonprofit movement supporting Israel, but also empowering Jews to speak up on campus. Same thing with Jewish Voice for Peace. Similarly, the messaging from Jubelong does a lot of fear-mongering around intifada and Jewish violence in campus, but also pays a lot of money to put giant pink billboards in metropolitan areas encouraging people to fight anti-Semitism. So presenting, hey, there's a problem, but here's a organization that presents a solution. A lot of Jewish students on campus also have Stand With Us bracelets, so it's very pervasive. Jewish Voice for Peace and Hey Alma are notable outliers in this respect. However, I think that's very telling for this data as a whole. What my understanding is from what I'm seeing is that major organizations and leaders in the Jewish community are becoming more right-leaning in their support for Israel. The newly created Student Supporting Israel group on campus shares many pro-Trump posts because of his support for Israel. This is also evident in the media fight between AIPAC, the ADL, J Street, and JVP, which took place in December. Each took out Instagram ads stating that the other was not Jewish. AIPAC claimed that J Street was not pro-Israel because it advocates for a two-state solution. J Street stated that the ADL abandoned Jewish values by endorsing Trump. The ADL stated that JVP was not a Jewish organization because of its support for Palestine. However, Jewish students were overwhelmingly left-leaning when surveyed, and that creates an internal conflict when the majority of groups speaking about your community are reinforcing what Eliyahu Ungar Sargon terms the iron wall rhetoric, that everyone is anti-Semitic and always will be, so you are alone. While students do not follow accounts like the ADL or AIPAC, all the accounts that I listed do follow them, including our DU Hillel, DU Chabad, and Center for Judaic Studies. They will post this information. One student, one interviewee, despite not following the ADL, was able to perfectly quote their statistic that Jews are less likely to be hired in white-collar spaces because they are Jewish. I believe that there is a national identity forming within the Jewish community, but right now we're a very divided community. However, the boundaries of that identity are not as harsh within the community as it is within its leadership. This division and nationalism are built on the feeling of isolation, as neither the far left nor the far right take into account the American Jewish experience and instead choose to weaponize the Jewish identity for their own socio-moral and political rhetoric. In an age where our news outlets are perceived as untrustworthy, understanding how communities perceive themselves and how this leads them to understand international disputes and personal freedoms is vitally important. We live in a world where religious nationalism is rising both in American politics as well as the American public. Conversely, there is a push in young voters to right historical wrongs through socio-political action. Both of these behaviors stem from how individuals are understanding themselves and their communities in the context of the world, leading to a shift in how individuals are making their political decisions. The American Jewish community's self-perception, understanding, and relation to Israel-Palestine is at the forefront of global politics right now. And until we can educate ourselves and the public about the American Jewish experience, Jews will continue to feel isolated and turn towards leaders who validate their experiences no matter the political alignment.